Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Owen Riel and this is the Collective Record and this is a Warhead. Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 7 of the Collective Record. As always, I am Owen Riel. This is Emma Kaser. And boy, do we have some topics today. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we have 3 topics today. We got 3 big ones. So we have Alberta separatism. Wexit, hashtag Wexit is number 1. Second, we have Emma's quick segment, and we'll have a little discussion on Israel-Palestine. And our third segment is privatization and crown corporations in Canada. Very exciting episode. Lots of different topics that are kind of like all over the place, but I'm very excited. So without further ado, I'm going to have a little chat with you guys about Alberta separatism. So we on this show briefly talked about Alberta separatism before the election, if I'm remembering correctly. I kind of talked about how going into this election, it looked like Alberta and Saskatchewan were going to very much differ from the rest of the country. They were going to, elect quite a few conservative MPs. Not only did Alberta elect a lot of conservative MPs, they elected only conservative MPs. 34 out of 34 of their seats went conservative, and 1 seat went NDP in Saskatchewan. The rest went conservative. So to say that separatism in both the West and Quebec are on the rise is absolutely true, especially with the Bloc Québécois in Quebec. And I wanted to bring up a couple stats because these kind of shocked me. So 33%, 1/3 of Albertans support separatism, as well as 27% of those from Saskatchewan. So that's almost a third it's a third in one province and almost a third in the province directly adjacent to it. And that's only after 4 years of Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau is, historically unpopular in both of these provinces. But it just goes to show you how crazy separatism is becoming, and it's becoming a reality, right? It's seriously becoming a reality. And Alberta's Premier, Jason Kenney, is a self-described Canadian patriot, but he is willing to consider separatist ideas, and he has established a panel called the New Fair Deal Panel that will consider some measures to make the province more autonomous, like the following: establishing a provincial revenue agency by ending Alberta's provincial federal tax collection agreement, withdrawing from the Canada Pension Plan and establishing a provincial plan, ending the province's relationship with the RCMP, establishing a formal provincial constitution, and opting out of federal cost-sharing programs. Now, the one that kind of stuck out to me with the most was establishing a formal provincial constitution. That's, wow. That's kind of like, when I read that, I was like, oh, so you just really don't want to be part of Canada. It's not just like, even Quebec does this little dance. So even Quebec sovereigntists do a little dance of like, oh, hey, Quebec's its own nation, but inside of Canada. This is like, I don't know if any Quebecers are supportive of their own constitution, but establishing a formal provincial constitution, how ridiculous does that sound? That is clearly a step out the door, not just a step to appease separatists, right? And it almost seems, even though Jason Kenney, the Conservative Premier of Alberta, is a self-described Canadian patriot, it's very, very clear that because of partly his party and his province, that he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. On one side, he's saying that he supports the Union, he supports the Confederation, and supports Canada. And on the other side of his mouth, he's trying to support the separatists, and he wants to have it both ways, basically. But you can see through this New Fair Deal panel that he's clearly leaning towards the separatists and not towards Confederation. Now, one of my biggest fears out of this Alberta separatist attitude with Justin Trudeau is, obviously, we've discussed before, Justin Trudeau is a moderate. He is a moderate who pretends to be a progressive, and that's why he bought the pipeline, and he is ready to build the pipeline. And what I think is going to happen is, as these Western exit sentiments continue to rise, he is going to build the pipeline out of fear that Alberta is going to continuously get more separatist. And that way, what he'll try to do is at least minimize the damage, right? I think that's what Justin Trudeau is going to do. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it would look like he's going to do. And what's worse is obviously we're in a minority government. The Liberals have a minority. So they need at least one party to help them get this pipeline through. Which party out of the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, and the Conservatives are most likely to help him build that pipeline? I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. It's the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is going to want to help. And if they are the party that pushes the pipeline over the edge, that may mean that in their pipeline building, it may be more and more of a right-wing style plan, less consultation with Indigenous peoples. That could have all sorts of ramifications in the end of this, right? Now, obviously, for a lot of us in Eastern Ontario or just Eastern Canada or even just Central Canada, we don't really know what to do about Alberta. We kind of, not about Alberta, not like we want to destroy Alberta, but we don't really know how to address this, right? And I think that's what Justin Trudeau struggles with, is he doesn't know, as somebody from Quebec, how to necessarily address the issues that Albertans are really concerned about it. And my hypothesis is that it's not so much about the pipeline itself. I think it's about it's a job security issue. I think Albertans want to make sure that the oil sands workers that are there now are going to have jobs in 15 years. They don't want to be wiped away by green energy. And I think the right in Canada has done an excellent job of making them afraid that if we become a more green energy reliant state instead of a oil and gas reliant state, that they're going to lose their jobs and their economy is going to kind of go down the toilet. So I think it's a job security issue. I don't think it's a pipeline issue itself. I don't think the pipeline is the symptom, but not the cause of the problem. It's not the sickness, right? I wanted to bring up a couple polls that I thought were interesting. When polled by Abacus data on whether or not they wanted oil dependence to increase, stay the same, or decrease over the next 10 years, 28% of Albertans said they wanted dependence to increase. 35% said they wanted it to stay the same, but 38% said they wanted the oil dependence to decrease. So, the largest segment of Alberta's population say that in 10 years they want Canada's oil dependence to decrease, right? And when Abacus data asked the same question, but over 30 years, Albertans' opinions changed a little bit. 48% of Albertans decided they wanted to support a decrease in dependence on oil. And that was preferable over the next 30 years instead of 10. And then 20% favored an increase and 32% favored dependence on oil to stay the same over the next 30 years. So clearly, the plurality of Albertans support moving off of oil, right? So already in a place that, their economy is built around the oil sands, they are still relatively favorable towards green energy and moving off of oil and gas. And that's without any real posturing by the left or any liberal government in saying, hey, we don't want you to lose your jobs. We just want to move off of green energy. But the liberal government hasn't really talked about green energy at all. So Albertans are left in confusion whether or not they're going to have jobs at the end of a green energy revolution or not. And that's the thing about the Greens is I think if they had more resources, they would be able to go into Alberta and say, hey, we know you guys work in the oil sands. We know your family is dependent on the money from these oil sands jobs. But what we're going to do is guarantee that you will have the same income coming out of this Green New Deal revolution, moving off of oil dependence and moving towards green energy. You're going to have the same income and have a steady job coming out of this. And I think that is the key to making it so that Albertans are more receptive towards green energy, and that will kind of quell separatist attitudes, because really it revolves around the oil sands. but the job security that comes from the oil sands. And we need to address that cause. We need to address the insecurity about jobs in a green energy state, right? If you look at Nova Scotia, for example, there was so much overfishing in Nova Scotia that there are no fishing jobs anymore, right? They want to make sure that doesn't happen. Something similar to that doesn't happen to their economy, and there is job security within their province, and that's what the federal government needs to do to get Alberta both on board with green energy and to get them off board with separatism. So yeah, I just wanted to spend the first 10 minutes on that and kind of talk about how I feel about how to get all 10 provinces and 3 territories on board with green energy. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Emma, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, just to go back to the separatism, it seems like very drastic action that Jason Kenney is taking for only 33% support. I mean, that's not even half.
Well, the thing is, the problem is,
how is he able to do this? He doesn't even have 50% support.
So I think part of it is not so much that the actual support of separatism is there. I think that number is going to increase over the next 2 years or so. I think that number will get above, at least it'll get above 40%. I think look at how it's increasing already, and we've only had a Liberal government for 4 years, right? Imagine over the next 2 years of the Liberal minority government, how much worse that's going to get.
So he's banking on it.
So he's banking on it, and I think he's doing that. As much as I hate the moves he's making, I think his strategy is excellent. Like, he knows exactly.
Don't say that.
Well, but what he's doing it like he knows what he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. He knows exactly how to play on these fears of moving away from oil and gas that a lot of Albertans kind of have. They don't, they're afraid that the oil sands, are just going to be left and there are going to be no jobs in Alberta. And I think that's the core of it, is income security, right? I think all of this ties back to income security because, it's not like Albertans are sitting in their homes with like little vases full of oil going, oh, I love oil so much. I love oil. It's about job security. It's not about the oil. It's about people being able to give a good life to their children, having enough money to survive. That's what most of politics revolves around, is income security and being able to take care of yourself and your family, right? That's what politics is, making sure that can happen, making sure you don't die or you don't go bankrupt because you have a broken arm, things like that. That's what people care about. So I think the real issue here is not oil and how much Albertans love oil. It's that the oil right now is bringing them job security. And we need to make sure that they know in a green energy state that they will still have job security. And we need to guarantee those oil sands workers jobs in green energy, I think. That's my personal take on it. Okay. I love if anyone would like to comment.
And then someone commented, can we hear Owen's incredible sadness on Elizabeth May's resignation? I just realized we had never talked about that on the collective record. We forgot, so I thought we should address that.
I'm so glad that Cam brought that up because... Also, I love that he said oil. That's pretty... Thank you for that. I hope we get that in the video
yummy.
We're working on. Yummy
Thank
oil.
you, guys.
Elizabeth May... Here's the thing. Obviously I love Elizabeth May, right? She's amazing. She's like...
Obviously he loves her.
She's the best.
There's no question about it.
She's like the best party leader ever, right? But I think, she's been party leader for 13 years now. And I think she wants to be done. She's made so many gains for the party. They won over 1 million votes in the last election. She's had enough at this point, and I think she's going to stay on as an MP, and we're going to have a new green leader. Hopefully it's a young person, fingers crossed it's a young person of color. That would be amazing for the party, and that would, I think, push them forward, right? Oh my God. The comments are, great. Okay. So yeah.
Sometimes it's like dead people going off today.
Yeah. But no, I think
people like oil.
I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that she's leaving. I think a new leader, as much good as she's done for the party, it might be good to have a new leader, a younger leader, who can really push the party forward. It's kind of how I feel about it.
I was expecting that to be way more sentimental. I'm a little disappointed.
What was I supposed to say?
I thought you were gonna like cry.
Oh no, I'm not gonna cry.
You
She's
sure?
still in Parliament. She's staying in Parliament.
We have like 40 more minutes. You can cry if you want.
No, it's okay. She's staying in Parliament. She's gonna keep fighting the good fight. So that's good.
I was sad to hear it.
I was sad, but yeah.
I would have loved to see her as prime minister, but I guess that was really in the cards.
She's 90 years old and she's prime minister of Canada. That'd be pretty fun.
I would support. How old is Bernie?
Oh, how old is Bernie? He's like 78, I think. Yeah.
See?
And I do love
He
Bernie.
might be elected.
I do love Bernie.
He has a lot of support in the U.S. It could happen.
It could. It could happen. Oh, okay. All right. You want to move on to Israel-Palestine?
Yeah, awesome. Okay.
Let's get off this topic.
So, we're gonna talk a little about Israel and Palestine. So, I think we all hear about the kind of conflict and war between Palestinians and Israel in the news a lot. But I want to talk a little bit more about the origin of that conflict. I feel like we always have to go way back to actually understand what's going on now and how we can fix this, especially in a very complex situation like this. So let's go all the way back to the very basics. So the region that Israel and Palestine are fighting over is in the Middle East. It's located close to Syria and Egypt, and it was referred to as Canaan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? So the core fight here is that both Jewish people and Palestinian people feel that they have rights to that land, right? So the Palestinian people were the people that have been living there for years, and Jewish people were first in the region when Moses led them to that region out of Egypt, according to the First Testament. So they were later banished from the land, and they did not actually have any cultural claims, any current cultural claims to it, right? They have that history, but they did not actually have a population living there until, and this is where we get to where our whole conflict starts, the early 1900s, which is when this kind of, anti-Semitism started to come about in the world, and a mass Jewish immigration to the land that Palestinians were living on started happening. So let me find my notes. I'm sorry, I'm losing my note here. Where am I? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so due to World War II, not Palestinians, due to World War II, Jewish people felt this need for an independent state, right? So they started immigrating to what they felt was their homeland, which was in, okay. I'm very sorry, guys. My notes are a mess. No, I lost my place. All right, give me a minute.
Okay, who said, oh my goodness. The comments are such a mess. Oh, good Lord.
Okay, can you say, Owen, can you move on with your segment for a minute? I need a second.
I'm just going to talk about comments because this is, ooh, people are, you want to, am I on camera? Okay, yeah, I am. Oh, some of these, whoa, okay. So we need to talk about the 25 centimeters of snow we're getting. Damn that global warming. No. That is, no. Owen, I will, okay, not going to read that. Not going to read that out loud, even though everyone can see it. Yeah. Is this an okay boomer occasion?
It is not an okay boomer occasion.
Who, me or Doug? Oh, good Lord. Yeah, this is an okay boomer. This is an okay boomer occasion, Reagan. That's what, yeah. And then, oh, good, Ethan. Ethan said okay boomer. Good job, Ethan. Ethan's in the studio today.
Okay, boomer.
We love, oh, he just said,
God.
Yeah, we love Ethan. We love Ethan. Reagan's making sure I know that she wasn't calling me a boomer. I know Reagan. I just,
Be nice to my
Can we talk about the Australian politician who said "Okay, boomer" in a conference? Yeah. Okay, that's good. So while we're biding our time here, yes. So I think it was in New Zealand. Yeah, it was in New Zealand. Thanks, Ethan. In New Zealand, a green politician was in the middle of talking about, I don't remember what it was. Do you know, Ethan? Do you know? She was making a speech about something, and then a conservative politician interrupted her and corrected her, and she stopped her speech and went, "Okay, boomer," and then just continued talking like it was nothing. It was pretty funny. It was pretty good. I enjoyed that clip. That's one of my favorite clips of like all that's gonna go down in political history. Honestly, that's like some serious goodness. Are you good, Emma? Are you good? It's on. They're talking, and they're not telling me what they're saying. What is everything good? Have you found your notes?
Just
okay. Should we continue with the segment?
No.
Okay, so we should not.
Your next segment.
My next segment is going to be after the break, so we're just going to keep the comments coming, guys. So I'm just going to nail off a bunch of comments. Okay, hold on. Let's go back and look at older comments. That's a good suggestion. Hold on. Have you looked at all into Peter Downing? Oh, Peter Downing. Is that the guy? Hold on. Let me do a quick Google. Peter Downing. Wexit. Oh, okay. Yes, I read an article about Peter Downing. It was so funny. Peter Downing. He made a Wexit party or something like that. I don't know what the party's called. I don't really care enough to know. But he made a Wexit party, and he got like 523 signatures in Alberta and was bragging about it like, "Yo man, look, I have 500 supporters for my federal party. Ooh, good for you. That's really, you really showed Justin Trudeau." Yeah, no, that Peter Downing is kind of a goof, and I don't want to say anything that's unfounded, but weren't there like records of him saying like some racist things or something? I don't know. I don't want to say that. Don't take that with a large grain of salt, but I don't know. Visionary or villain? He's the Oh, I love Toronto Star headlines. Yeah. Are you good? You good?
I'm missing a whole paragraph in my timeline. It's gone. I can't find it.
Okay, you want to just continue with the segment?
No, I'm missing like my timeline.
Oh, what's in the mug? Oh, it's this great. Okay, it's this great drink from Sobeys. It's just called Fizzy. It's my favorite thing. It's peach. It's peach flavored. Thanks, Doug, for the informative question. Everyone, keep the questions coming. I'm having fun.
Owen, just go on with your segment.
No.
I need to find my notes. I've lost a whole paragraph of my research.
Well, I don't want to start my. No,
I think I put it in a separate doc, and it's just gone.
Okay, well,
I'm trying to find it.
Keep going. What do you think of the rainbow poppy nonsense? Oh, I got a little something for you. No, it's not a real thing. It's literally not even real. It's not a thing. Have you? Everybody who's upset about the rainbow poppy, just think about it for a second. Have you seen anyone wearing one? How many people have you seen wearing a rainbow poppy? 0. You know why? Because they aren't being manufactured. It's not real. Have you even seen a picture of anybody wearing them? No, because it's not even a real thing. It's not real. People are getting outraged. It's not even real. Like we live in such a time. You can't even make this stuff up, man. It's not. It's so silly. Oh, yeah. No, the rainbow poppy's not real. If you're upset about it, you're upset over something that's not a thing. So, stop, I guess, is my feeling.
Not fake news.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. No, yeah, it is. It's fake news. It's literally is fake news. I saw like so many all caps paragraphs about the rainbow poppy, about how disrespectful it was. And you know what? I don't think you should change the poppy at all, but like the fact that people were so upset over something that's not real is like so mind-boggling to me, you know? I just can't. I like, you kids get off my lawn. Thanks, Dad. I like the purple one. What's the purple one?
It's for the animals that fought in the war.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, that is cool. I like that. That's good. Yeah, no, people are getting upset over things that aren't even real now. It just do be like that. Sometimes that's just how it be. Yeah. Yeah, give me more. Hit me with more question on Vindman's testimony against Trump. I haven't heard about that. I need to be more informed. Thank you, Cam. Yeah, no, but the Trump Ukraine situation is interesting. We can talk about that briefly. Impeachment. Ooh, you know, I didn't think impeachment was going to happen ever. Honestly, like I think like a lot of people, I just thought they were just forever. Like Trump is just. I thought he was invincible. Really, I mean, I thought he was invincible. I thought when he said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and nothing would happen to me. Seriously, I honestly thought he was right, and I was so terrified. And now I see like no, now that they actually have like a concrete phone call and a transcript, that's so clear that he committed a crime, right? Like he's obviously, I read the transcript. He's very clearly soliciting Ukraine and trying to withhold military aid, or else, if you don't investigate Joe Biden, right? It's so clear. You can't do that. Anyone with half a brain knows you can't do that. You can't. You can't. Even as president, if you think, this is kind of suspicious. You know what you would do as like uh, a logical person in office? You wouldn't. You would not do it. You would not do that thing. You would just not. Like it's that simple. But he's arrogant, right? He's an arrogant guy, and he always has been. And he thinks he's invincible, but it's increasingly becoming clear that if two or three Republican senators decide, he's going to get impeached, right? If two or three of them flip, he's going to get impeached. And it looks like, by the way the Republican Party is posturing, that he may get impeached, which is very interesting. How's the segment looking?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Do you want to take? Why don't we? Do you want to take a break, and then we'll?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna discuss Israel Palestine and privatization and crown corporations. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Hello, everybody, and we're back. So, little update. We're going to address a few more comments and then get into our last segment today. So, Emma her notes have just disappeared on Israel Palestine. They were there.
Not all of them.
like,
I have half of them.
Just half of the notes have disappeared, and obviously, you don't want to do like half of a story about such an important conflict. So, I think we're going to do that next week. I think that's the plan, unless she miraculously finds them before the end of the episode. So yeah, quickly, somebody brought up, I think Cam and Doug both wanted to talk about Michael Bloomberg. Oh boy, I do not like Michael Bloomberg. No, I don't. He's a billionaire, right? He's not on the left. He may pretend to be on the left, but he's a billionaire. I mean, come on. Even Bill Gates, who's like the most charitable man ever, is so afraid of the Democrats. Like seriously, is making efforts to protect his billions of dollars. And it's Bill Gates. Like, he's a charitable guy, and even he is like not loving what's going on in the Democratic Party with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, right? So yeah, Michael Bloomberg is obviously not really on the left. But I don't like Michael Bloomberg, but I might like his running in the Democratic primary, and here's why. Is because the type of voters that will vote for Michael Bloomberg are the same type of voters that will vote for a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden. And I think if he does decide to run in the Democratic, I think he already has, or he might be like deciding, I'm not totally sure. But if he does anything, it's going to be taking support away from Joe Biden, which is great. Like, I don't like Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a neoliberal. Who, you know, he's like center right. He's not on the left just because he's a Democrat. He's center right, like a lot of establishment Democrats are. And it would be, you know, it'd be a lot better to have a Bernie Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren nomination. And that is more likely if you put Michael Bloomberg into the race, because he'll just take support away from Joe Biden. So yeah, I mean, I don't like Michael Bloomberg, but I would be happy if he ran, because that would be strategically positive for Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. Is there anything else? Do you guys like this open forum stuff? You know, as well as the segments? I want to know, because, you know, if you guys like more open forum stuff like this, just answering questions and you know, this sort of thing, we'll do more of it. You know, me and Emma will talk about, you know, whatever you guys throw in the comments, as long as it's appropriate, right? Like, we'll talk about, you know, whatever you guys want to talk about. So yeah. Oh, thanks Razor Eat the Rich. I like that. Good stuff. Yes, I agree. I know he is quoting me. I'm saying good job for quoting me. That's good. Good job. Okay, everyone's saying yes. So there's probably going to be a lot more of this. So yeah, look forward to that. Okay, but we are going to move on, and I will, if there is a lot more stuff at the end you guys want to talk about, we will talk about it. But I want to move on to our last segment, which we're going to quit playing with stuff, Ethan. You're making noise. So we're going to talk about privatization of companies and assets in Canada. So public assets being privatized. First, I want to talk about probably one of the worst premiers in Canadian history, Mike Harris. Mike Harris's government leased Highway 407 to a foreign company that SNC-Lavalin, in case anyone's familiar with SNC-Lavalin, they have some shares in the 407 as well now. They leased the 407, which was a public utility created by Bob Rae for $1.5 billion. They leased the highway to this company for 99 years for $3.1 billion. That's why the 407 is private, is because Mike Harris decided that he wanted it to be a private enterprise. Now, what the options essentially were is his privatization options were he was going to sell it for $3 billion for a lease of 30 years, but instead he opted to take $100 million more on $3 billion to lease it for 99. So from $30 billion for $3, for 30 years for $3 billion to 99 years for $3.1 billion. Isn't that a good deal? Isn't that really, really knowing your way around fiscal policy? Man, yeah, we love to see that, Mike Harris. Good job. And the 407 is not a small piece of highway. It encircles the GTA, and it's 139 kilometers long. It's a highway, like a proper highway, and it was set to relieve a lot of congestion in the GTA. But now that it's a private highway, a lot of people either can't afford or don't want to pay the crazy tolls now that you have to pay because it's privately owned. Uh, Actually, oh, here's another way Mike Harris botched the sale is the 407 is now worth 10 times what the Harris government sold it for. According to SNC Lavalin's sale of 10% of the roadway, they were going to sell 10% of the roadway this year for $3.2 billion. They were going to sell 10% of the roadway for $100 million more than Mike Harris's government sold the entire thing for. Under that evaluation, the 407 would now be an asset worth $32 billion, and Mike Harris sold it for $3 billion. And I assure you, inflation has not been that much. It hasn't been 10 times since the late 1990s. That is a terrible deal. That is terrible fiscal policy, just flat out. That's bad. Hydro One is another public company that's been sold off, but not by the Conservatives, by the Liberals in Ontario. They sold off a majority of Hydro One before they left office. The Ontario government is now a 48% shareholder in Hydro One. What that means is Hydro One's salaries for their executives are no longer disclosed on the Sunshine List. And if you're not familiar with the Sunshine List, that is a list of all publicly employed executives who make $100,000 a year or more. Emma, is that the Sunshine List?
Yeah, it's
$100,000 or more. That's all public executives, right? And its practice cannot be scrutinized by the province's ombudsman, and its books are not open to the province's auditor general. So all of these checks and balances that are meant to be had in a public company that provides a public service are no longer available. So we can't keep track of the people cannot look at the salaries of the executives. The province's ombudsman cannot scrutinize the company, scrutinize their actions, and the auditor general can't look at the books now. And in fact, since the sale, since roughly around the time that the private sector gained the majority of the company, hydro prices have gone up 16% in 3 years and up to 10.1 cents per kilowatt hour now, and is set to continue to increase. And now, that's a serious issue because hydro is a necessary public utility and it's rising. And that's not entirely due to privatization. It's partly due to the Wynne administration's poor handling of money and placing some debt within Ontario power generation. And that's a whole other issue that we can talk about another time. But it is also partly due to the privatization and the need for a lot more profit in the margins of the energy sales. Canada as a whole has privatized the following crown corporations. Canada has privatized Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, Highway 407, Canadian National Railway, Alberta Liquor Control Board, Nova Scotia Power, Petro-Canada, Potash Corp., which is in Saskatchewan, Air Canada, and Canada Air. These are all crown corporations that served a serious purpose and were publicly owned and regulated that are now no longer publicly owned and regulated. So they have no accountability to Canada's citizens. Private institutions, as our current market-based system has it, have no ethical responsibility to Canadian citizens, right? There's no checks and balances on them other than a very few, tiny things. But we don't have access to their books generally, and we don't have, it's very difficult to look at to regulate them essentially because these corporations are not public domain anymore. Now that's a serious problem because generally when you make a corporation private, profit plays a lot more of a role in some of these necessary services, right? Like energy will now have, at least in Ontario, will now have a lot more of a more profit on each kilowatt hour you buy because it's private and private investors are looking to make profit off of public services. And this has been a story that's been happening for a long time. In the United States, after New Orleans hurricane, rather than rebuilding the public schools, they built charter schools and gave everyone a voucher, so that private corporations could make more money on the schools, right? This is a theme in the last few years that has been, you know, it's been taking hold. Capitalism to an exceptional degree has been taking hold against public interest, right? When disasters happen, big companies will look for ways to capitalize on it, and that's just this is another facet of it in Canada, right? The market wants access to our crown corporations, our public entities. They don't, the fact that any public entities exist at all and any services are offered by government is viewed as a danger by the private market. And we need to combat that by saying, no, these public institutions are better for public interest. But we don't do that, and we don't defend them. And even liberal governments, who are supposed to lie on the left, even though they often act that way and don't deliver on those policies, right? Even liberal governments are privatizing crown corporations, right? This is disastrous for Canada, right? We need to make sure that, honestly, my feeling is a lot of needs should partly be taken care of by crown corporations, right? Crown corporations should play more of a role in distributing low-income housing, distributing basic foods, making sure people's nutrition is good. And here's an example that I think would be helpful across Canada. Is if a crown corporation were to use government assets. So if a crown corporation was established to unite small local farmers under one banner and give them needed market power to sell their goods in Canada, right? Think about how much food you get. Think about how many fruits you get that are from Brazil or Mexico or wherever, right? Think about how many foods you get, and they're cheap, right? They're cheap because they're mass produced and they have market support of large corporations. Now imagine if we were to create a crown corporation and support local farmers, support small farmers who are working hard in Canada and having an incredibly difficult time getting their product to market because they don't have the power that large corporations have, right? If a crown corporation were to come to these farmers and say, hey, we will take you under our wing, come under our network, we will give you the market power you need to get your food to market. We'll subsidize it, we'll do what we have to do so that Canadian people can buy Canadian farmers' products, right? That's an example of where a crown corporation should be, both to support local farmers and to lower food prices for Canadians. These are the kind of common sense things that, yes, we need. There are places, obviously, where the economy needs a private sector's magic, right? Like in luxuries, you wouldn't have, what's an example? You wouldn't have hoverboards without the private market. They do interesting things, the private market. Ethan's sighing at me. The private market does good things when it's tended to, right? When it's allowed to generally take care of things that aren't needs. But in cases when the private market tries to take care of needs, they fail. They can't take care of healthcare in the United States. They fail. People die every year because they either don't go for the healthcare they need or just don't get it at all because they're uninsured, right? The private market fails for needs, but they succeed for wants. And that's really important, because we need to make a distinction of where our public assets should be and where our private assets should be. We need to make sure that we have a proper balanced economy. We can't just say, oh, right down the middle, or 30% should be public, 70% should be private, right? We need to balance it properly and say needs should be taken care of by crown corporations, and we can transition to that. That's not something that happens instantly, and wants are taken care of by private corporations, right? This is a needed balance in Canada that we should have because we are already a mixed economy of public and private, right? But we have to work there. We can't continue to privatize public services that are necessary. We can't continue to bow to profit, when it comes to our public services. We have to be more careful and say needs must be taken care of by crown corporations or public assets, and wants must be taken care of by the private market. What's so funny? I want oil. Okay. That's enough with the oil. I made one joke about people having oil. Oh, okay, this is interesting. So Emma handed me her phone, and it says that for that Emma, not that Emma. The 407 ETR Concession Company Limited. The company reported net income of $470 million for 2017, compared with net income of $372.9 million for 2016. And that's very important. We'll go back a little bit to privatization and Mike Harris, because even if you consider, even if the 407 prices stayed the same, right? Say they didn't get cheaper. Imagine if the company wasn't privatized and that money was able to go to our government to either balance the budget, offer new services, offer things that are important to Canadians, rather than going into some Spanish company's hands. Why do we care what a Spanish corporation, why do we care that, why do we want a Spanish corporation that has no accountability to us getting $470 million a year? I certainly don't. I think that money would be much better served going to Ontario's government, right? Offering services and that sort of thing. I think that would be much better. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. But yeah, back to the wants and needs. I don't know. I would like to have some more discussion with other people about this, but I think that wants and needs should be separated, and wants should be taken care of by the private market and needs should be taken care of by the public sector. That's my feeling anyway. And obviously there's caveats to that and lots of nuances that would have to be talked about, but genuinely that's how I feel. I would like to see if other people feel the same way, or if that's a likable opinion. But yeah, that's genuinely how I feel about that. Emma, do you have any comments? Nope, she does not have any comments. So yeah, we still have a few minutes before we hit the hour, so if anyone wants to talk about any questions, if we want to do a little more open form stuff before we finish up here, yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I've always felt that, look at universal healthcare for an example, right? Obviously, our healthcare outcomes are much better than those in the United States, right? Like, I think a lot of people people on the right kind of measure the United States healthcare system, and they'll say like, oh, well, why do, a certain amount of people from Canada come over and get healthcare in the States? It's like, do you think those people are poor? Probably not. They're people who have a fair amount of money going over to the States, getting treatment that they can't get right away in Canada. Having one dude from Germany getting some crazy surgery coming to your country is not the measure of a healthcare system. The measure of a healthcare system is whether you can take care of everyone's needs. And I think that's an important distinction we need to make when it comes to needs. What's not important is having mayo chup. Does anyone know what mayo chup is? It's mayo ketchup, this horrible abomination that Heinz has decided to make. Feeding people as a need. Mayo chup is not that important. I'm sorry to tell you. Affordable ground beef, affordable milk, affordable cooking oil, things like that. That's what's important. Not friggin' mayo chup or Big Mac sauce being able to be bought on the shelves. These are not the things that are important. We need to, I feel like, emphasize more need instead of want as far as food goes. Because there's people, wow, I'm so glad that you get to have your mayo chup, but I'm not glad about the families in Canada that still can barely afford food, right? It's I just think it's so silly that we talk about these stupid, oh, look at this amazing new food when people are struggling to eat, right? Needs need to be taken care of, right? That sort of thing. But yeah, affordable milk should be Owen's band name.
That'd be a really good band name.
Affordable milk. That's great. Owen's left eye twitch is what I live for. It's my right eye, actually. It's just reversed. Cam. Yeah, affordable milk. It should be Owen's band name. You want to write that down for me, Ethan? Write down affordable milk for me. That's good. Have you guys gone milk shopping yet? Oh, we need to do that. We forgot about that. Thank you, Reagan. We will try and do that very soon. Thanks for the reminder. That's good. Yeah. So I think U.S. health insurance. U.S. health insurance only good as long as you're healthy, and that is true. That is true. Thanks, Dad. That's true. What happens a lot of times is people will have insurance, and then when they actually go to get their care, their insurance company will just be like, no, we don't want to cover that. I'm good. That was somewhere in the fine print. Guess you should have read the 12-page document. Sorry. You know, that's just how I feel about that. But I think we're gonna wrap up there. I think we're all good. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. We will. Oh, subscribe! I forget that every single time. Yes, subscribe. Share the podcast with your friends. It really does us good when you do that because we get more viewers and more of a community to talk to people. Thanks for saying bye, Doug. I appreciate that. You know, it gives more commenters to us. We can, we build more of a community when you share with your friends and they start watching. So, share it. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.